What is happening, guys? It's a beautiful sunny day in Austin, Texas. Steve Mayeda here, Austin Men's Development. We are going to do a breakdown on what it means to be social when you feel antisocial, when you don't want to talk to people. Where do we start? How do we tap into this thing that kind of everybody in my groups is talking about? And where do we start when we can talk to people, but we just don't want to? We don't want to see the value in that. This is a question that comes from a guy who is brand new to my groups. This is awesome, man. We have local Austin meetups as well as a program called Men's Development Excellence that you can join anywhere around the world. He just joined that, but he lives in Austin, so he can come to the live meetups every Thursday night at 7 p.m. It's an awesome thing. It's one of the better men's development groups that you're going to get. It's all about leveling yourself up, learning the reality of life, women, career, all the potentials of you, and everybody cares about you. You can be from any belief. There's no ideology. It's all about you being the best you. I really would recommend that if you're interested in bettering yourself as a man, look into those groups. It's really like nothing else that's ever been there, and it's been around for 10 years, and there's a clear distinction of guys who improve their lives with it. Okay, so enough about that. So when it comes to socializing, this is like our bread and butter. Socializing, sex, intersexual dynamics, relationships. I don't even know if those are words. This is something that we have been doing for a long time and have worked with success with a lot of people. And so this question is literally asking, how do I get social? How do I simply be social? I already know how to do that. I can go to a bar and shoot the shit with somebody. I can go and get in a conversation, but I do not care. I'm not motivated by that. I don't want to do it. I see it as wasting time. And this is something that happens for us. Now, I want to jump a little bit to a theory that we work off of and we work to success, and it's very important. I believe that everybody was born to be social. So we're born to be social, we're born to be sexual, we're born to sleep well, we're born to be healthy, all these different things. If we put ourselves in the right situations for that, our biology takes over. So the idea here is that if we put ourselves with the right thing, if we achieve the right result, our biology is going to take over in being social. This is the important thing. So meaning that if we can get here, we don't need to work at it as hard, but maybe getting to that certain point, we will need to work at it a little bit more hard. This is interesting because it comes down to the method is not the truth. The method may get you closer to the truth, but it is not the truth. It's not the main thing that's out there. And we get into all this different philosophy of what is truth and so on. Don't worry about that right now. But I just want you to understand that we need to achieve a certain result that you could be plugged into, and nature's going to take its course with motivation towards conversations and all these different things. Now, obviously we live in a society and everything's all cockeyed and things are all crazy, whatever. Stop blaming that. Don't worry about that. There's ways where you can get socially happy with it. It's not like the world's oppressing you too bad. It oppresses you a little bit, but there's plenty of benefits to it as well. Anyway, I digress. So what we got to do is we got to get to empathy. We got to get to caring about people that we connect with. So what creates empathy? Empathy is created naturally when we actually have connection. But it's not just connection like we're talking about small talk. We're talking about things that we care about, okay? And this is where we get into the different structures. And if you're on Men's Development Excellence, you need to look at the Formula 69 course, videos 1 through 5, I would say would be really there. Maybe 1 through 4, when we really break down rapport and connection and what that is. So there we're teaching rapport as a set or a technique, but that technique is based off of your identity. So in tandem, we're going to look at things which are valuable to us, right? That mean a lot to us, that we care about in other people, that we value in other people, and the direction that we want to go to with other people, okay? Now, there's a lot of videos breaking this down, okay? So in this one, there's just a brief overview. But if we learn about us, we learn about what we want, we learn about the directions that we go in, we learn about when we have valued connections socially, we can start to plug that into different modalities of where we're going to talk, or conversational structures that I call rapport cycles. So an example of this might be, I love being a father. Okay, so I love being a father. I may love being a father. Well, how do I connect with that? Well, if we go to the F69 course or even in the Instant Connection course, we look at the general of that. The woman may not be a father, and that would be interesting if she was, but she may not have kids. She may not have different things that are specific to me, but what's the general concept of this? That I love a thing and it changes me. And this is real for the example of with the gentleman who asked the question. That's why I'm kind of going down this road. But you can find generals about anything. If you're a mechanic, if you've even achieved or experienced trauma, you could talk about those things. So you can talk about negative and positive things, which is also another video I need to make today. We basically want to get to a point where we are able to talk about this general concept about something that we care about. Now that thing that we care about, let's say being a father, and I'll just try and throw some stuff out there that the gentleman who asked this question might be able to relate with. Caring for your son through adversity, doing whatever it takes for him, being the backbone of his financial stability, those types of things might be, positive for him. And that might not be your story. We could still find it even if that's not your story. Don't get lost on the specific. Okay, so we need to be able to learn to talk about that with somebody. And the idea is we need to talk about it in a way where it can generate a result that we like. Now, when we really get into rapport, we're not always going to get the conversations that we like. And a lot of times we still achieve empathy and connection. So those things can change, and they should change. But at first, let's try and go with what we want. What we want is for somebody to understand, to truly relate with how we want to provide for our son or daughter or whatever it is, right? So we want somebody to relate with that, to be able to go like, wow, man, I can relate with that. Here's something with my life. Let's connect on that general concept, which we haven't fully gotten to yet. So let's say, because it's easy for this gentleman to start normal conversations, let's say we're at a cafe, we're at a bar, or in some social situation and there's a stranger, somebody you don't know there. Now that stranger, you might want to talk to them or say something like, hey, I got a question for you, but how is it that you express yourself best? I know it's a weird question. Now, you don't need to stick with that. I like asking big questions up front. There's a lot, again, tutorials about that and why that's a good reason. But I like asking big questions that are somewhat vague because within a minute, I'll be able to get specific and deep and deeper than most people. That's just my route. But there's other guys in my group that, might not be so deep right away and can move to something. Social dynamics is pretty cool. We got a lot of videos on that. The goal is that I want them engaged, right? I need them paying attention to me. So the number one thing is when I first start a conversation, I need them to pay attention in those first 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. And I say something like, so when do you feel your best? Or I forget what the opening question was. And they say, man, that's a weird question. We're at a bar, geez, drink your Lone Star, drink your Bud Light, drink your Miller, whatever it is. I say, no. The reason why I'm asking is because I have a son. And that's how I believe I express myself best, to provide for him, to be there for him for all those different things. And there's a whole bunch to it, but I always want to know when another man or another woman or another whoever, sitting across to me, I know you value something, I know you express yourself best, but where do you express yourself best in? Now, they may not be able to answer that question, but if you inventory yourself, if you look at yourself, which is a huge part of what I tell people to do, you'll know how to find that in them. Meaning, if I have looked at why I value that, like how I express myself, I can go like, well, what do you do? I mean, do you do a sport? Do you have family? Do you have something where when was the last time you felt like you? This is something that almost everybody can grab onto. Why? Because that is the general. When have you felt like your best self? When has that happened? When has that happened today? When has that happened the last few days? Here's some examples. Is that through work? Is that through your hobbies? Is that through your dreams? But when have you felt it? Because I know it's there and that's what I want to talk about it. Now, to me, that's my relationship with my son. To you, I want to know what that is. And see, when we start building those conversations, my value in a direction through a simple structure so far, that is what I want in a conversation, that's achieving the end goal, which is getting what they value too, and the end goal is to have them relate with me, which we haven't gotten there yet, and it may not get there. That is a beautiful thing. Okay, so that's really amazing. I want that to happen, okay? So in all of this, they give you whatever reply. Most likely they're gonna be confused. I'm gonna tell you, I've just done this, it would be kind of naive to say thousands of times because it might be more, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of times, but I've done it a lot. I know the responses I get, and I've taught it to thousands of guys who've then also done it thousands of times or whatever it is, but there's a lot of information on what happens when you ask that second question, Okay, that second question of like, so tell me, when do you express yourself best? They're like, man, I haven't thought about it. And you're basically going to get kind of 4 responses. Somebody trying to answer, somebody confused and question you back, somebody maybe even giving you advice, and a direct no. And so what those look like is confused is like, man, it's a deep question. Somebody who is questioning you back is like, well, why do you ask that, right? And very easy to deal with all of these things. Somebody who gives you advice is like, oh, well, man, that's good for you. We don't really want that. We want to move into their expression. And number 4, it might be like, man, I can't talk about this, which is fine. You just exit out of that conversation. Happens rarely. And if it does happen, it's either that person's situation, but if there's something to do with you, it has to do with your nonverbals and those communications coming across. So that being said, if you get any of those first 3, which is confusion or an attempt to answer back, or, this kind of like advice dynamic, you just say, but, well, I think you know what it is, but it's a weird conversation to have with a stranger at a bar. And the key is to get them talking about what you have now put out that you value, okay? That is key. And as soon as that happens, and you may have to work at it, and if you look at F69, there's all sorts of different ways. You could list 3s, you could access memories, all right? So you could do all these different things to get there, and not to be confusing, but when you ask that second question, like, let's go through it. 1, what is it that you feel you're best with? They kind of answer. 2, my son and my whole relationship with that, which should just be short, 2-3 sentences, maybe 4, 15 seconds max. And then 3, so what is it that you value, or what is it that you feel best expressing yourself in? And they're kind of like confused, or like, why are you asking me that? Or it's good that you think that, but I don't really know what you're talking about, okay? So something like that. We could just say listing of 3s. Well, like, look, the last time maybe it was a sporting event, or maybe it was, picking up your niece or nephew, or it was the first day you got a dog or something like that, but you just really felt that there was meaning in the world. Could be drinking this beer. What is that for you? We're making it easy for them to start to express themselves. Now, here's the thing, is we were born to connect. We were born to be social. And you might need to do this rapport cycle a couple times, right? It may not just happen the first one, but oftentimes it does. Is that when we do that, right? When we do that, we're born to connect, we're born to be social. You're going to start to feel social pretty quick. And I'd rather speak to you from problems that you're getting to this point in the conversation, rather than conceptualizing all this. And they're going to want to tell you their story. People want to tell their stories. I mean, that's obvious. People want that. We just live in a society that doesn't allow that to easily happen. And so when you allow that situation to happen, man, people jump at it. Women jump at it, men jump at it, everybody jumps at it. If we have time and we're not under major stress or duress or some sort of timeline, people will tell you their story, and they will want to tell you their story. So I want you to do that. And like I said, I'd rather answer your questions of problems within your rapport cycle and talking about this concept in total. And again, there's a lot of resources for it, whether you're watching on YouTube, there's playlists on conversations and so on. But if you're in MDX, you have mad resources, and you can also post on the Facebook group and so on and whatever. But that being said, you're going to get this phenomenon of connection, and that is going to propel you into motivation, and that's where we need to start. And if you're doing that, I'd rather talk to the problems that you're having in doing that so we could get you there. In any case, hopefully that helps. I'm out. Beautiful day. Got to go meet with a client. Good times. Later.